Calvary Chapel presents Pastor's Perspective, a one-hour program that gives a biblical and pastoral viewpoint on the theological, social, and practical issues of the day. We'll be taking your calls in just a moment. But first, here's today's host.
Hello, welcome to a Pastor's Perspective special edition. My name is Josh Taransky. I'm your host for today's show, and our number is 888-564-6173. Joining me in studio is Pastor Brian Broderson, the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, and his wife, Cheryl Broderson. It's good to see you guys. It's Friday.
It's good to see you, and it's good to be here together with my wife because we haven't done this for a while together.
Nope.
So it's a special day.
Yes.
It is a special edition.
Yes, it is. I'm excited. I know I listen to Cheryl on Saturday mornings as I'm driving around. Usually I'm taking my kids somewhere, and we sit there and love it.
I have a big fan base among children. I'll have people come up to me and go, "Oh, my kids won't miss you on Saturday morning." I don't know if it's because I follow the kids program.
You follow the kids program.
Or maybe it's all my years of teaching Sunday school.
Yeah.
But I've had these kids, and I love children.
Yeah.
So that's like, being a grandma, that's like the audience you want. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I know my kids love it.
Good.
So you guys are getting ready to head off to Israel here in another few days.
That's right, a week from yesterday.
Wow, that's going to be
fun. Yeah.
And get this, we're going river rafting on the Jordan River.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, one of our first adventures.
And I just found that out like 3 days ago. So I'm in shock, but I'm very excited.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be great because
some people get baptized and some people go river rafting.
there are no rapids. This is going to be like going down the river that we went down in
Jamaica. You know what I'm
yeah.
afraid of, though, is the minute your feet touch it, it'll dry up, and then we'll just have to walk across.
Well, maybe the minute your feet touch it, it will.
Yeah,
Maybe.
or if we do it together
If
in
we
the
do it
boat.
together.
Yeah, we'll carry the boat.
Right.
Did the Jordan River ever dry up, or was that
Yeah,
the Red Sea?
remember?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, both.
Remember going into the Promised Land?
Yeah.
The minute
That's
the feet
right. When
of
the
the,
feet of the priests.
priests,
And the priests.
and they were carrying the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
We don't have an Ark of the Covenant to carry.
No, we
And
don't.
so we're probably going to go rafting. It's
Yeah.
probably going to happen. Somebody told me it's so cold. Those
Really?
nice
No, not now.
spring,
Not this time of the year. No,
the
it'll be
nice spring mountain water. Well, I beg to differ.
Okay.
I want to show submission right here and
Yeah.
how it's done.
Yeah, you can differ off the air, but right now,
Yeah.
just
Okay, then I
be
won't tell you the
submissive.
person that told me that was checking the water temperature and said it was in the 50s.
Okay.
On the Jordan River. Wow.
Yeah, because it's
That's gonna
coming.
be
It's
fun.
straight out of. It's coming from Caesarea Philippi, straight out of the headwaters of the Jordan there. So it's cold. It's
Okay.
coming.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We will see.
You'll have to
what
give us an
happens.
update on Instagram so people can follow you guys on Instagram
Yeah.
and see
Yeah.
all the pictures.
I'll take an
and-
Instagram of Brian shivering. I'll do a movie so you can see the shaking.
Okay,
and trembling.
quick
Yes.
couple of announcements.
Okay.
Yes.
Tonight, 7:30 right here at the church, Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, we've got the Dropbox.
Yep.
And heard nothing but fantastic reviews on the
Mm-hmm.
Dropbox. A great film about a doctor in South Korea who takes in abandoned babies. And so I bring plenty of tissue with you because I heard it's an absolute tearjerker.
I've got
but
2 boxes in our
it's,
car.
it's really powerful. So we're looking forward to that. And we're also looking forward to meeting the director, Brian Ivey. He's going to be with us tonight. And he actually might show up here in the studio in the second half of the program today. So if he does, that'll be great.
Yeah,
We'll get
he's
to-
stuck in traffic right now.
Yeah,
but
he's stuck in traffic coming from
that's
LA.
why I'm here.
So, but that'll be good. So anyway, tonight, 7:30, the Dropbox movie. Come on out. It's going to be a great time. And then tomorrow morning,
Big news.
at 6:30 on the
right.
corner of MacArthur and Fairview, there's going to be a rummage sale, and that's going to benefit the young people going to Creation Fest. So if you want to come and buy somebody's junk,
Or some Calvin Klein shirts from, I'd say, the late 80s, early 90s that used to
No.
belong to Pastor Brian.
honey, I have no shirts from the 80s or 90s. These shirts were bought in the 2000s.
I don't know, Brian.
So, yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, no, I know they were.
I think
So
the Jordan
there's
River
go-
is cold, and I
there's
think
gonna
those shirts
be-
are older than you think.
There's going to be plenty of items out
Yes.
there for you to pick up. And
I know, I've got a couple of things from the 80s.
We've done tons of garage
Vintage.
sales over the years, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Because you used to kind of be in the garage sale business. You would do garage sale every now and again.
You know what? When they wouldn't buy my vases for 10 cents. And when I was giving them free with purchase and they were taking it out of the bag, that's when I gave up my career.
But I will never forget the time that you sold a pair of my Sperry topsiders
yeah.
that were definitely worth $50. You sold them for
No.
like a quarter.
No.
And I was so mad at you.
No. But then I noticed that when you saw how much money I was making, you ran into the house and got more things.
Nice. That's
So,
great.
Yeah, that's how we supported ourselves in England. Before we
So-
left, we had a huge blowout garage sale, and
In England.
no, we did it
coming-
right before
Yeah,
because
before
we
you
had to get rid of all those items.
Okay, so tomorrow morning, 6:30. I think they're going to go till about 2 o'clock. So right on the
Depending,
corner of...
what if they sell out?
Well,
They might sell out by 10 and not have anything left.
So at
Come
Calvary
quick.
Chapel parking lot at the corner of Fairview and MacArthur.
That's right.
Yep. My wife hopefully dropped off a coffee table and an end table.
Ooh, good stuff.
Yeah, I've been waiting to get rid of that stuff out of my garage. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Cheryl cleaned out her closet, and I was really proud of her, and it was good. And then last night
I
was
told
my
everybody
turn,
the truth.
and I just wasn't into it. I
Nope.
came downstairs and said, "Forget it. I'm not going to do
That's
it."
after 3 minutes.
And but she did it, and I cheered her on.
That's
I-
right. He
I
stood
watched her
outside,
from the sidelines.
yes, and said, yes, no,
Yes.
yes,
And-
yes.
And our daughter Kelsey
Helped.
was with us,
Mm-hmm.
and she got me kind of into it because she had some really clever, sarcastic comments to make about my clothes.
Yeah, get rid of the Skittle shirts.
She said my
Nice.
shirts look like Skittles, and then she accused me of having a Dwight Schrute shirt.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
Yeah, so I
That's great. I wish
So-
you would have taken a picture of that first.
thought- I don't know where she
Well,
was
you know
going.
what? Go to the rummage sale and see if you can find it.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Wow. Well, so that's tomorrow morning. Any other announcements before we jump into some calls?
I think that's it.
Good.
Sunday night, we could just mention that Sunday night we start a new
Acts.
study in the book of
Yes.
Acts, and that is with our service on Sunday night. It's called Acts 2:42, where we have a devotional time in the Word, and we have a time of prayer, a time of worship, a time of communion. And this week we're going to be talking about the baptism of the Holy Spirit. We're going to be praying for people to receive the baptism of the Spirit because, this is what we need desperately. God has given us His Spirit. He never intended that we live the Christian life apart from the power of the Spirit, or that we could serve Him apart from the power of the Spirit. But I think sometimes Francis Chan years ago wrote a book called The Forgotten God, and about the Holy Spirit, because there's sometimes we just sort of, we focus in on Jesus, of course, we focus in on the Father, and sometimes we're just sort of oblivious to the person and the work of the Spirit. But the Spirit, since the time of Pentecost, the Spirit has been the one who's
Yep.
really, been doing everything that's been done, of course, in conjunction with the Father and the Son. So all throughout this book of Acts, we're going to be looking a lot at the ministry and the work of the Spirit. And so I'm just really confident and looking forward to what God's going to do.
Yeah, I am too. It's going to be a great time. So, well, let's take some questions. 888-564-6173. This is one of those. Maybe once a month or every other month we get to have Cheryl here in the studio with us, which is a lot of
Could
fun.
we start with Maximus?
We can't. Oh yeah, there's Maximus.
Yeah, he's 8. He shouldn't be forced to wait.
That's true. There you go, Maximus. Are you there in Paris, California?
Yeah,
Hey, how are you?
good.
Good.
Okay, Maximus, are you in 2nd or 3rd grade?
Third.
Wow. 3rd grade. Okay.
Wow, that's great. We have an 8-year-old grandson who's in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
So
And my son's in 2nd grade as well, and he's 8. But Maximus, what's your question?
My question is, did God go in a human body to heaven?
that's such a good question.
Yeah. What would you say, Pastor Brian?
Yep. What'd you say, Pastor Brian?
What was the question?
I knew you were looking at your cell phone. Sorry,
Did
Maximus.
Jesus go to heaven
I
with
was-
a human body?
Did Jesus go to heaven with a human body? Yes, he did. And as a matter of fact, he will forever have that body. That's one of the amazing things about what Jesus did. Jesus, of course, is eternally God, the Son, the second person of the Trinity, who prior to his incarnation, that's the word that we use to describe him coming as a human being, taking on a human body. Prior to that, of course, he was, without any limitation, bodily or anything like that. But when Jesus became a man, he became a man forever. That's part of the great sacrifice that he made. So he's still God, but he's also a man and will be a man forever.
You know, a really great story or scripture to look up on this is in Luke chapter 24, where Jesus tells his disciples to feel his hands and to look at him. And he even says, give me some fish and some honey to eat. And he eats right in front of them. And he says, see, a spirit doesn't have bones and flesh like I do, but see this? And he was showing them that he was a physical being, but also spiritual. And Jesus is called the first fruits of those who rise from the dead, because Jesus is going to make all of us rise. So if you want to know what you're going to be after you die and what your body's going to look like and how it's going to function, we look at Jesus, because he is what we will be, which I think is really exciting, because the disciples were in the room and the doors are all locked. And the next thing you know, there's Jesus right in the middle of them. And he didn't come through the door. He just showed up. And that's going to be some of the things that our new body that he's giving us. So it's a same physical body in a way, but it's new and it's improved. And it talks about this corruption will put on incorruption, and this mortal will put on immortality. And in the epistle of 1 John, it says that we don't know exactly what we're going to look like, but we know this, that in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, that we'll be changed. And we'll be glorified. So we'll be the best that we could ever be, better than you could even think of. So it's going to be really, really great.
We're going to be like him.
Yep, we're going to be like
what it
Jesus,
says.
because we'll see him like he is.
Maximus, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Good. We're glad you called in today. Thanks for getting on the radio.
And that was such a great question.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yep. All right, Maximus, have a good Friday evening. God bless you.
You too.
That's so fun. Love 8-year-olds.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a little 8-year-old that I love a lot.
Yeah, and we have an 8-year-old grandson we adore.
Doesn't cease to amaze me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a question from Dakota out in Camp Pendleton, California. Dakota, you are Camp Pendleton, for those who are outside of California, is a Marine base. Are you on the Marine base there, Dakota?
Yes, I am.
All right. What's your question for Pastor Brian?
I was just wondering, can the Bible, or does it justify in killing an enemy during wartime?
Yes, it does, Dakota. The Bible prohibits murder. And, murder is something that is premeditated. It originates with hatred or envy or jealousy or, those kinds of things. The Bible doesn't prevent killing necessarily, and there are many, many places in the Bible where war is the context of many events that took place. Many of the great men of God throughout the history of the Old Testament especially were warriors. Joshua was a warrior. David, of course, was a warrior. So, there is a place, there's a place for law enforcement. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 13 that the governmental structure, speaking there about law enforcement and like the judiciary and even the military, that those things are all established by God for the keeping of law and order and for the punishment of those who are evil. And so the military serves that purpose, of course, on a larger level in the context of war. So that is something that's allowable. Yeah.
Brian, remember years ago there was a movie called Sergeant York
Sergeant York.
with
yep.
Gary Cooper,
Gary Cooper,
and
yeah.
it's based on a true story.
Yep. It's a great movie. If you can pick that up and watch it, it's great. Gary Cooper plays Sergeant York, and he was one of the most decorated soldiers in the First World War. And
he was a Christian?
He was a Christian, and he actually didn't want to go into the war because of his Christian faith, but he had a moment in prayer where he felt that God showed him that he was going to help, and he was going to defend, and he was going to protect, and so forth. And so he ended up going, and he became quite, vital to some of these battles, and I think won the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yeah, it's one of the
something.
best
Wow.
movies that Hollywood has ever put out as far as a testimony, because it really shows him being converted and changed. His whole lifestyle changed, and then wanting to obey the Lord and going through this battle of debates about whether it was right or wrong to fight, and how the Lord met him there. I would recommend that movie to everybody. It's so good.
Excellent. I'll have to check it out. Looks
Yeah.
like it came out in 1941, a little bit before my time.
Yeah,
That's
just a little
actually
bit.
before your time, too.
Yes,
Before
both of
all of
ours.
our
Can we go on record?
Yes.
Before both of our times. All three of us.
Dakota, does that help you?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
It's good.
All right.
Well, we
And
thank you
thank you.
for serving.
Yes,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And
Yeah. God bless you,
Absolutely.
Dakota. We appreciate
Yeah.
it.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's a good answer because Dakota's, it's not just a theoretical thing. I mean, he's in the military.
Yeah.
So
He is,
that's
yeah.
an important answer for him.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can have a clean conscience and serve and do it to the Lord. I think of what John the Baptist told the soldiers, right, that came
Yeah.
to him and asked, what does repentance look
Yeah.
like for me? And he said, well, don't be abusive.
Yeah.
Don't take, just be happy with the wages that
Yeah,
you receive.
and it's interesting that John didn't tell them, well, you need to get out of the military. There are certain groups within, the Christian church. There are pacifists. There are those who believe that you can't be part of the military. Of course, this is the belief of the Jehovah's Witnesses, some of the cults. But I think if the military was a place that there was, that you weren't allowed in, John would have made that clear. Hey, you got to quit. And we see, even in the scriptures, we see, Cornelius, for example. He's a soldier. He's a centurion in the Augustan regiment, and the Lord reaches out to him and saves him and his family and so forth. So
Yeah. Well, great. Let's go out to San Diego, California, and talk with Joshua. Joshua, what's your question for Pastor Brian and Cheryl?
Hey, Pastor. How you guys doing today?
doing
Good.
great, thanks.
I've been doing a study on Revelation lately, and got to the sixth seal, opening of the sixth seal, and it talks about a great multitude coming out of the Great Tribulation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of conflicting theories depending on pre-trib or post-trib or mid-trib rapture views.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to know if you guys could give me a little clarification on that.
Sure.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that these are the, as it says, these are the ones who come out of the Great Tribulation. They've washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb and made them white. And this is that multitude of martyred saints, people who during the tribulation will put their faith in Christ, but will pay the ultimate price of their, having to give their life for their faith. That's what I think is being referred to there.
Does that help, Joshua?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, thanks for your question. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right, let's go out to Azusa, California, and talk with David. David, what's your question?
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who has a Bible study going on, and they were talking about whether to attend a gay marriage, maybe a family member, and he asked me my opinion. I said, no way, Jose, there's just no way. And we went back and forth a little bit, and I said, well, do you think Jesus would have attended? And he said, well, maybe, because those are the type of people he hung out with. And I said, well, no, he was preaching the gospel to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, if you're going to go to a gay wedding and preach the gospel, well, then go right ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was wondering what's your opinion on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. What would you say, Pastor
My
Brian?
opinion's his opinion.
Yeah.
I agree with you, David.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing needs to be clarified here, because I hear this over and over, and it's kind of just, a lot of people say this today. It's like, well, Jesus hung out with the tax collectors and the sinners and the prostitutes and the, all of those people. And I think just hung out is not really the right word. I think, Jesus, of course, engaged with them, and he wanted them to understand that there was love and mercy and grace and forgiveness and all of that. He came to save the sinners, and so he couldn't really disassociate from sinners and save them, But I think the idea of hanging out, sometimes people present it almost like Jesus just hung out with them, and that's all he did. He just hung out. He wasn't content to leave them in their sin. He was with them for the purpose of
Evangelism.
bringing them out of their sin and into faith in him. So I just wanted to clarify that there. I think it's common sense, but some people seem to state it in a way these days, that makes it sound like something that it wasn't. And this is a touchy situation because, of course, there's the emotional component, and then there's people that would say, well, we want to be a witness, we want to keep a door open for this person or whatever. The passage that comes to mind, the one that I've been thinking about lately that I think has application here, is in 1 Timothy 5. Paul exhorts Timothy not to partake in other people's sins. And, there's no way of getting around this. Same-sex marriage is sin. It is, and it never will be anything else, regardless of what the Supreme Court's going to say about it or what the culture says. It's sin. And so, when you're participating in this, you're in a sense, just by the very nature
Condoning,
of the event, you're participating in somebody else's sin. So I think you can still love somebody and express your love for them and tell them, I care about you, I love you, but I don't agree with this, and so I can't support it because my presence there would be sort of like an endorsement to it. So I think that personally, that's my opinion, that's the way we're going to have to deal with this.
Yeah. David, thank you for calling in. We appreciate the question. And David called 888-564-6173. If you have a question, we'd love to let Pastor Brian or Cheryl answer that question. This is a rare treat to have Cheryl on the radio with us and be able to answer these questions and respond to them. So let's go out to Paris, California, and talk with John. John, what's your question?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking my call. We had a meeting with our small group leader the other day. He's a young gentleman in his early 30s, and he studied at Fuller, and, he got his degree to become a pastor. I'm not sure how they go about it. But he was telling us, just as we were getting ready to walk away, that he believes in theistic evolution. Mm-hmm. Can you give me a little bit of information on what exactly that is? Is that like evolution through creation or something? And then what does he do with Adam and Eve? I'm just a little bit confused on what it means and then why he's our small group's caretaker or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think the first part of the answer is going to be easy. But why he's your small group leader, well, we'll let Brian answer that question.
I can't answer that part of it. Theistic evolution is the belief that God used evolution in the creation process. So looking at Genesis chapter 1 and 2, the person who holds to a theistic evolutionary view, they would say, well, that's just sort of poetic. It's kind of a poetic way of describing what God did, but it's not, it's not to be taken literally. It's not necessarily to be read historically, because they believe that evolution is a fact, and so, but they also believe in God, so they figure, well, God must have used evolution. The problem is you can't really reduce Genesis 1 and 2 to poetry. It's really prose. It's just straightforward. It's really history, and there's nothing in those passages that would give any room for evolution. The way it's spelled out there, God created everything. He created, they call it ex nihilo. He created everything out of nothing. And then having made the matter, then he begins to form the matter. And then we have the various, the plants and the animals and so forth. And everything reproduces after its own kind. So there's not one sort of, matter that evolves into all different kinds of things over millions and billions of years. And as far as the time frame, some people, there's a big debate about whether it's 6 literal 24-hour days or if those are periods of time or just indefinite. But the text, I think, just read straightforwardly, it seems to lend itself to me to 6 24-hour days, that God created everything in that time frame. And how long ago God did it, it seems like, 8,000 years maybe. Of course, all of this flies radically in the face of evolutionary theory, which talks about, the need for millions and even billions of years and so forth. So that's what theistic evolution is. There's lots of good Christian people. They love Jesus truly. They're born again, but they hold to theistic evolution. So you can't dismiss a person's Christianity because of it, but this is definitely a different view, and I think it's the incorrect view. But
I think it's a faithless view. But I do, like you, I know a pastor who I really enjoy his teaching, but he teaches that Genesis 1 and 2 is a song.
Yeah.
And that, and I'm thinking, it's pretty clear that Adam sings a song, and it's differentiated. This is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, I will call her woman. And that's definitely designated as a song, but I don't see
The rest of it.
Yeah, and I think God would have said, here's a song. Instead of in the beginning was God, here's a song. In the beginning was, I think it's pretty clear that it's presented as fact, not as a song.
Sure.
But again,
Yeah. So if somebody came to you, Pastor Brian, and they said, I want to be a small group leader in your church, but I do believe in theistic evolution, would you let them be a small group leader?
Well, it would depend on whether they wanted to use a small group to promote theistic evolution or not.
Yeah.
If they wanted to use it as a platform for that, of course I wouldn't,
Right.
because I don't believe that that's the right
I
position.
can tell you in Joyful Life, none of our leaders are theistic evolutionists.
But, you can have people that hold these different views that it's not an issue for them. It's not, they're not on a mission to get everybody to believe this. They're content to recognize that, there are different views. And this is my view, but I respect somebody else's view. So I'm not going to try to persuade somebody. I mean, I will debate with somebody on this issue, but at the end of the day, if they truly believe in Jesus, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to try
Break
to force
fellowship,
them.
yeah.
I'm not going to try to force them to hold to my view. But so again, why that person's allowed to do that, I do not know.
John, does that help you with your question?
No, for sure. And that's I did understand what it meant, but I was looking for clarification. But what I probably wasn't clear was not just my small group, but the entire church of maybe 7,000 people, small groups.
Oh, he oversees the small groups.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, maybe he's good at small group ministry, and I don't think that holding theistic evolutionary views would eliminate him necessarily from that. Like I said, as long as it's not a platform to promote that, and as long as the other leadership in the church recognizes that, okay, this is this person's view, we don't want this view promoted.
Yeah, I think there's some, here I am and I can be the dissension, but I think there's some bad fruit that comes from a position like that. Because I think you're saying, well, God could have done it like it says in the Word, but he didn't. And also it's a lack of faith. I love it when Paul stands before Herod and says, why should it seem impossible to you that God should raise the dead? And why should it, when we're dealing with God, and who God said to Jeremiah, nothing is impossible for me. Why do we need evolution? It's already been disproven that, even Richard Dawkins said, well, it had to happen somewhere in the universe, and the seed had to happen on a different planet to allow for the millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions, and I think we're up to 85 million years or longer. And so it had to be seeded on a different planet, and then that seed, the seed that could make evolution happen, was brought to the United States by extraterrestrial beings.
It was not brought to the United States.
Oh, not the United States, sorry, the world. I'm sorry, probably the Fertile Crescent. But anyway, it was, why? Why do we need that? Why? We don't need that. Yeah. We don't need that. We've got God, and our God can do anything.
Yeah.
And I think if you struggle with chapter 1 of Genesis, what are you going to do with Noah? What are you going to do with Jonah? What are you going to do with Jesus rising from the dead? If this becomes an issue for you, because it takes faith, and without faith, it is impossible to please God. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and a rewarder of those that diligently seek him.
But I agree with you, but I don't agree with you, because I agree with everything that you're saying, but I don't think that you can automatically conclude that there's bad fruit that's going to come from it, because we know people who hold the view who have ministries that are very impactful, and
could you give us a moment here?
Bad fruit from it.
But
we'll argue about this later off the air.
Yeah, but this is the thing that I feel is that there's 7,000 people that might be under the influence. You don't want them to be influenced with a lack of faith because here's leadership. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. But I think that you can have faith. I mean, I do not believe in theistic evolution.
Obviously.
Just to make that clear.
Obviously.
But I think to say that if somebody does and that there's going to be bad fruit, I think that's kind of an overstatement. So.
But there could be.
There could be lots of things. But
Okay, we're going to take a break.
Bad fruit among them.
All right, we'll be back in just a minute. See ya. Welcome back to the second half hour of Pastor's Perspective special edition. Second half hour, special edition. We're having a great time.
I thought you were saying secular edition.
Secular edition. No,
That's for the theistic evolutionists.
We're having a great time. We have Pastor Brian Broderson in studio with us and his wife, Cheryl Broderson. And we're joined by Brian Ivey.
Hi, everybody.
Made it out of traffic.
You're barely, yes.
The director of the movie we're showing here tonight, Dropbox.
Yep.
But it's not just here. It's going to be it's going to be coming out in theaters, right, all over the place.
It did come out in theaters, but now it's coming out in the churches across America, which is really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, where did you first hear about this story?
Sure. Well, I was in film school at USC, University of SoCal.
Not to be confused with the University of South Carolina.
Definitely not. And I was reading the newspaper, a physical newspaper, in my home in San Clemente, California, where I grew up. And you guys know San Clemente, of course. Normally where I speak, they don't, but it's like a retirement community for 20-somethings there. So I was reading the newspaper, looking at my charmed life out my breakfast nook, and I read this article about this pastor named Pastor Lee who had built what looked to me like a mailbox for abandoned babies on his church in Korea, which has to date rescued over 682 children from the streets and from the mountainsides.
Wow.
So that's when I first read it, June 20th, 2011.
Wow. And so did you know at that point that you'd make a movie?
Oh, no. Well, I was in film school. I thought I wanted to make movies, of course, but I definitely didn't want to make movies about something like this. This was not on my radar, right? But at the same time, I read this article, and I decided that this could be my ticket to Sundance Film Festival, because it was one of those stories that, because as you guys know, a lot of times for our culture, especially young people, doing good is kind of a cool thing to do.
Yeah, right.
And so that's what I was thinking. So I sent an email. I got an email back about a month later. It said, "Dear Brian, this is Pastor Lee. I don't know what it means to make a documentary film, but you can come live with me if you want."
Wow.
Really?
So what did you do?
So I lived with him.
Did you really?
I moved there on December 15th, 2011. Not to stay long, but just on my Christmas break, because that's all I had from USC. It was me and 10 friends, and I slept on the floor with the kids.
Wow. In Korea.
Yeah.
And 10 friends went with you?
Yep. They didn't all stay in the orphanage. We had this unfurnished apartment down the road, but I slept there just in case there was a drop-off in the box in the middle of the night, and I wanted to capture that moment.
So, Brian, how did this impact you as a person when you went and did that? I mean, you read the story. Sure. Obviously, it touched you, but then you thought, well, Sundance Film Festival. But then you went there and actually lived it. So what happened?
Exactly. I mean, it is one of those stories where you think, well, you got to come out of it somewhat affected, Maybe your behavior will be changed. Maybe you'll do some good. But no. This was a transformation for me.
Yeah.
I became a Christian while making the film.
Wow.
Which a lot of people don't know, because I think they assumed I was a Christian, because I didn't smoke cigarettes and I watched Fox News with my mom. So that's kind of what people assume is Christianity. And we live in America. If you're not a Muslim, you're a Christian. And so that was me. But at the end of the day, seeing this man as this father figure and all these lost, broken kids, I saw myself in the kids and my spiritual brokenness and their physical brokenness. And I saw God as a father for me in this man, and realized that I needed to be saved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, so it was a direct result of that experience that you came to that conclusion?
Well, there are a lot of links in a chain, I would say. But what it showed me, it gave me a picture of what God's love was like. It wasn't a Hollywood, weak-at-the-knees love. It was a sacrificial one. But I also had to understand my sin, and that there were consequences for it, which came about listening to a sermon, like you would probably give, Brian, on a podcast. And it talked about how Jesus became my sin and became me and my story. And I was listening to it on a computer that I'd been addicted to for 6 years, looking at pornography every day. And so that's what broke me.
Amazing.
But I also got free and hadn't had its hooks in me in 3 years.
Yeah.
Since I got
Awesome.
saved,
Okay, so tell me a little bit about. Are you okay?
Go ahead. It's your show.
I want to know a little bit about making the movie. Like,
Sure.
This was like, what project was this? Like, what number? How many movies had you done
Sure.
before? And
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, for me, I've burned everything before that. You know,
Wow.
we made a lot of Lord of the Rings films, if you know what I mean. Growing up in SoCal, in our canyon, you know. So we did James Bond, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and I also made a film called Farmer's Tan, which is about all of my emotional problems in high school. You can see that nowhere, I promise. So
Not
leading up
even
to
on
that
YouTube.
point, I made films about me.
Yeah.
You know, but this one was about him.
Wow. Okay, and the process, like, when did you take the cameras over and start filming? And did you write the storyline? Like, you knew what the storyline was going to be before you started filming?
Oh, I had it all figured out.
Did you really?
So the doctor, he's the actual guy in the movie, or is it an actor?
No, yeah, it's a documentary. So we went over to
it's a documentary.
to actually
Right, okay,
live with him.
Okay, yeah.
As he wanted to. And to me it was funny, but to him he was just serious. He said, I don't really know what a movie is about, but you can come live with me. I'll hang out with you.
Wow.
And probably in his mind he was like, I'll tell you what it really means to be a Christian. And so
Wow.
But we actually got a camera donated, and the best part was that it was the same camera Peter Jackson was using on The Hobbit in New Zealand, which was a pretty big deal for
the actual one, not the same model.
So it's the same model, yeah.
Oh, the same model, okay.
Same model, and but $50,000
Wow. And it was given.
given to
It was
us.
donated.
Wow.
Okay, how long did it take you from the time that you started filming till you finished the whole project?
Well, I'll say this. So I read the article in June 2011. I went to Korea for the first time in December 2011, got saved in June 2012, and then went back, threw away the script,
Whoa.
and went to Korea to tell a different story.
Wow.
That was more about God and us,
Oh, my goodness.
as seen in this picture.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. All right, we have to ask this question too. David Balick is a
Yes.
friend of ours, so we're going to give a shout out to David.
Love it.
So, how was it that David did the music? We know he's uber talented, but how did that come about?
David and I roomed together.
Aha.
So it was a very handmade film. I'll say that. And David is extremely talented. But what happens, you just start bumping into people at school. We went to school together. We roomed together. And so I said, Dave, I don't have any money. You're really good at what you do. I can't pay you anything, but would you record these songs in our garage? And
Wow.
and God just used us, right? And we were the last people you would ever think to make a really professional documentary film in another language.
Yeah. Wow.
But we were the guys.
So now you guys, did you meet David before you became a Christian?
I actually did.
Okay.
I met him in the quad at USC once.
Okay. So, but you guys weren't roommates before that?
No.
Okay. All right. Wow. Amazing. So you went to USC to study film.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
With absolutely no idea that you would ever become a Christian.
No.
one of those Christian people, those weird people.
For sure.
And God just does. I'll tell you how I heard this whole story.
Sure.
David Balick's dad, Bob, is
Bob.
a friend of mine, and
Of course.
it's a friend of Cheryl's. We've known these guys forever, and so Bob catches me in the parking lot one day. Actually, after this program, he catches me. And he tells me, like, David's involved in the Dropbox. And I'm like, I've got Dropbox. I've got the app. Wow, David made that? I didn't know David made the Dropbox app.
That's right.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And then he starts pulling out this literature. And I'm like, wait, this is not the Dropbox app. What is this? And he showed me Focus on the Family. So I realized, okay, there's something else going on here. So then Bob starts telling me the story. And he's mainly telling me the fact that David did the musical
Of
score
course, yeah,
for
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and we're
Proud
kind of
father.
catching up on what David's doing, and like we've said at the during the break, our oldest son Char and David's older brother Brad were in a band together. They've been friends
Love
forever.
it.
Yeah, so that's how I heard about it, and then the next thing I knew, the film was out, and you guys did like a 3-day release or something.
Yeah,
like that.
we
Is
ended
that
up
what it
doing a
was?
3-day release in about 800 theaters in North America,
Okay.
followed up by an encore screening on Monday, March 13th, and we ended up selling about 275,000 tickets,
Wow.
which is over $3 million in revenue. And
Yeah.
the trailer is, from our assessment, the most viewed documentary trailer on the internet.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
We like
Yeah,
that.
it's
How
about
many
7.5 million views.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then the three night deal, as far as you're concerned, that was what you guys wanted to see.
Yeah, because what happens is when it's out for 3 nights, it becomes an event, and then the culture says, I vote for that.
Yeah.
And they show up for something they'd normally just watch on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Interesting.
now, was it only 3 days? Was that your strategy to do just 3 days? Did you want to get it in the theaters on a more
Sure.
kind of a different?
Yeah, we were at a crossroads of either, okay, we could do a platform, maybe 20 cities, and then we could do 3 weeks or something like that. But instead we just chose, okay, let's do 125 cities for a few days and get everybody together to say this matters at the same time. And then from there, now hopefully a lot of churches will pick it up, and then it'll go on Netflix, and that's when all the hipsters will see it, and so it'll keep growing from there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard some really good reviews. I've had friends, like I said, that said bring a Kleenex box
Yeah.
with you. But the reviews from my friends that have seen it, I mean, the next thing I knew, they're tweeting it. They're even my old friends. I have young friends, and Instagramming and just talking about how profound and how affected they were by this. So have you gotten a lot of feedback like that?
Yeah, actually, we've had a lot of families say, hey, we're going to adopt because of this movie.
Wow,
We're
excellent.
initiating that process for real. We don't mean just theoretically. We're going to adopt because of what we saw in this movie. I get letters from people that say, hey, I was in church my whole life, but I didn't really believe God loved me. I thought he just tolerated me, and now I don't believe that anymore.
Wow.
And so I don't know the whole impact. I won't see it till the end or,
Right.
cross the line, but I think it's been huge.
So, Josh, you had a question. What was that?
Oh man, I think my question was, so what is it like to I guess what's the industry like?
Sure.
For having is it a faith-based? Would you call it a faith-based, or like if I'm not
Sure.
a Christian, I go and watch this movie?
Yeah.
Is it a real strong faith-based movie, or
Sure.
is it a general market movie?
Well, to me, I think every movie has a base, right? Every movie's trying to say something, and some just say it better than others say it. It's not a sword and sandals epic, it's not going to be like the Bible series or something like that.
Right.
It doesn't have those. It doesn't self-identify that way. But he's a pastor. We don't sneak around that. But at the same time, it's gritty. There's a lot of brokenness. He lives in the same world everybody else does, which I think is kind of like the Achilles heel of most faith films, is they don't feel like they live in a broken world. They capture God's goodness, but not our sin and depravity. So I'm excited about this film because it doesn't compromise the truth, and yet it feels like a movie anybody can see and relate to. And that's the way forward. And that's the way your church has always been. Come as you are, right?
Yeah. But what an incredible thing to come out, your first movie that we're going to count, your first movie, and to come out with something so moving.
Yeah.
And from what I heard from my friends, riveting was a word that was used to describe it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is this a genre that you're committed to now? That you're experiencing this what I would call
Korean documentaries?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, my dream is to continue. I mean, the redeemed dream that I have is still to make movies at the highest level possible, mostly scripted narrative feature films, but definitely about God.
So, Brian, what kind of so you've got the church and you've got Christians and people are commenting, and like you just said, we're going to adopt, and I know God loves me. Have you had some engagement with, for lack of a better term, the secular culture, the secular media? What have they commented on it? Has anybody seen it?
Totally.
What's happening with that?
Yeah, I think even people that want nothing to do with the church will come and see it because it's a safe place. They go to a theater. You can be as aloof or engaged as you want to be. That's kind of the allure of the theater, right? It's like a womb, It's a safe place. And so we've had people come and say, what is this love about? I don't understand it. And I go, well, you're made for it. So it is an entry point. And people that want nothing to do with Jesus or church or whatever it is will come see this and they see something real. Yeah. And that's my heart. So
Can I ask you, what was it that got you? What was it that got you, that turned you to Jesus? I mean, there's got to be this one thing that just nagged on you.
Yeah. Well, I think it was that I actually bought a cross necklace on Amazon for $8 when I went over there because I wanted to relate to the pastor in some way. I couldn't communicate with him in English. And then somebody told me that the cross bought me.
Oh, wow.
And that Jesus took my place throughout my whole life and then on the cross, and that's the one place I didn't have to go. And if I would accept his sacrifice on my behalf, and it broke me down. All I could say was, I'm sorry for 20 minutes. But then I was known all the way through and free all the way through, and I've never been the same man since.
So, Brian, did you grow up in San Clemente?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was your life? I mean, you mentioned your mom. Were you from a single-parent home?
Sure.
Or
well, so my parents, I grew up in San Clemente, mom and dad. They're still together, which is unfortunately a very rare thing in a lot of places. But I didn't have much of a spiritual landscape. My dad tried to kind of bring faith into conversations and into our life, but just never something I took seriously. And I think I really have a heart for coming back to Orange County and just telling people, look, even if you never murdered anybody or had a cartel that you ran in Mexico, you need to be forgiven. I was the clean-cut American kid who never did anything wrong, quote unquote. But man, did I need to be forgiven.
So how long were you at USC before you came to faith?
I was at USC for about 2.5 years.
2.5 years, okay.
Yeah.
So did this kind of blow the minds of your fellow students?
Oh yeah, it was awesome when that happened too. Because film school was my seminary.
Yeah.
I like to say that because everything that I learned there, God's using now
Yeah.
for Him in the film industry. But I actually got to go show the film at USC Film School a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And got to share the gospel in front of a packed house.
Wow.
And that was the moment for me where I went, all right,
Yeah.
full circle.
That's amazing.
That's crazy.
That is fantastic.
So for other, high schoolers that have a heart for the film industry,
Sure.
is it really difficult to get into? Is
Yes.
it something that is
I would
just
say
have to have a lucky break, or
Well, I would say yes and no, because now it's democratized because you can just pick up a camera and you can put it on YouTube. But the problem is now it's just cluttered, right? So the best storytellers will still prevail and they'll still last. But I will say this, and I'll say it quickly because I know we don't have a lot of time, but it is like it was a long time ago in Hollywood where young people are getting an opportunity, if they are people of faith, that they would have never had before.
Right.
The field's been plowed. All of a sudden, we have 11 films on the slate for this year that are about Jesus in some way. So now is the time to stand up for your beliefs in Hollywood because you're not going to get blacklisted or laughed out of the room. But you got to do that without compromising, and you have to do it in an authentic way, or only the church will see it. And that would be a tragedy.
So, Brian, what do you think? And the big Christian event on TV right now is the AD series.
Sure.
And have you watched a little bit of that?
I have, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, these guys are well known in Hollywood. Mark Burnett's kind of a household name because of all of his production of these different reality shows and so forth. So how do you think that's going over in like the Hollywood culture? Are people saying, "Oh gosh, these Jesus, what are they doing to these Jesus movies?" Or are they going, "Wow, this is interesting"? Do you have any feel for that?
Sure. Yeah, I do. I have kind of a pulse on it. I mean, obviously Mark and Roma have way more of one than me, but they've traded a lot for. They've sacrificed a lot of their social capital and their celebrity capital to share the gospel.
Wow.
And so I believe in them. I love what they're doing. My hope would be that we can also make things in the mainstream that aren't just about the first century.
Yeah.
And we can get into ours and say, look, it's the same God.
Yeah.
And we're the same people, and He can still save.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Okay, so tonight there are going to be people that are coming to Calvary Chapel, and I did a women's Bible study this morning. I really encouraged the women to come and bring boxes of Kleenex.
Lots, yeah.
So I want you to just kind of give a why those who are listening, why they should maybe come on up to Calvary and watch this movie. Well, first of all, because it transformed your life, but let's,
Totally.
Well,
I would say this. We had this prayer that this would be the most talked about movie in America because God is putting Himself on display as a father.
love it.
Because the Bible isn't God so tolerated the world that He gave us a get out of hell free card. It's God gave everything for us so that we would have eternal life. And so I want people to see what God is like, and God has put a picture together over time of this man and his kids. So come and see what God's like.
Well,
Oh,
that's awesome.
I love that.
So tonight, I'm going to talk to you up there on the platform, at the end of the movie. So I think, if we could do a little bit of sharing your story.
I'd love
and,
to.
let people know,
Yeah.
Because, with people my age and Cheryl's age these days, we have a heart for your generation. And you're probably the same age as our youngest son, 24.
Yep.
And so, just to see a young guy like you doing what you're doing and coming to faith, because I think a lot of times people feel like, oh gosh, the youth are hopeless. They're never going to get saved. How do we reach them? What do we do?
Totally.
And your story, like many that I've been hearing recently, it's really like a God story. God just does something that this couldn't be scripted. Nobody handed you a Bible tract and said, but God had this amazing way sending you to having you read a newspaper article.
Yeah.
For goodness sakes. I mean, that's amazing.
It is amazing because He spoke through the thing that I worshipped.
Yeah.
And He turned my object of worship into His weapon of warfare in the culture.
Wow.
Love it.
And that's what He does with our gifts, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
That is so amazing.
I want to know, this morning I was teaching, talking in Zechariah chapter 4, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. Now, you're a rookie when you're making this film.
Totally.
And you're doing it. How much did you feel God's pleasure while you were doing it? And did you expect it to come off like it did?
Not at all. to the second part,
Yeah.
a lot to the first part.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm saved now, I'm a Christian. Okay, so these are the principles of being a Christian. Now I have to give up all the stuff I like to do, and I do all the stuff that God wants me to do. But God didn't dispose of my gifts; He redeemed them, right? And so now I just make films for a different reason, and I still love films, and I want to do that. And I did feel His pleasure because I know God delights in me, and that's His because Jesus came to bring us to the Father, and we always forget that in the church. And so I felt it all along the way, and the film shows that because that's where I went with my heart while making it. So I hope people get that out of it too.
That's awesome.
Oh, I know I'm going to.
Yeah. So if you're just tuning in, we're talking with Brian Ivy. He's the director of the Dropbox movie, which isn't about the app. It's about a Korean pastor that is adopting all these babies that
Nobody wanted.
Nobody wanted. Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be an amazing movie. We're showing it here at our church tonight. If you're not in the area, how can people get their hands on this movie? Because we've got tons of people that are not within driving distance of our church.
Oh, of course. So you can go to thedropboxfilm.com. If you're a church that wants to license the film, that can happen right away. And the DVD will be available on July 7th of this year, and Netflix will follow that.
Wow.
Excellent. Yeah. You know, this reminds me of that passage in Ezekiel where God talks about finding Israel on the side of the road like an aborted baby. And He said, I took you in, and I washed you, and I clothed you, and I adorned you. And that's so much the gospel story.
Amen to that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we still have a few minutes left, so we're not completely out of time. So what are you doing now, Brian? I mean, obviously you're doing a lot of stuff with the movie still, the follow-up and all of this. Are you, do you go out and share your story at different places, or is everything you're doing pretty much connected directly with the film? Or
Sure. Yeah, I've been able to go to churches. You know, I have two audience demos. It's either Korean teenagers or moms that are already proud of me. So I try to go into those environments. That's really helpful. But actually,
both sound really good, though.
That's right. But coincidentally, my next project with the Irwin brothers is called The Jesus Revolution, and it's about the Jesus movement of the 60s and 70s.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna do that with those guys.
I'm doing that film.
Because I was asked to give a donation for that one.
Yeah, yeah. We got some kind of.
That's why he's here. He's asking for money.
Yeah.
we got some kind of a thing on it that they were wanting to do it, and they were asking just if we would be interested, and we kind of read through it, and that's great. You're going to do it.
Yep,
that's cool.
That's the next project. It was as I read the material about the Jesus movement, I didn't even know it happened. Right, I just got into this
way before your time.
But I just felt like I would have been friends with everybody.
Yeah,
and there's darkness and complexity, but a lot of beautiful stuff too.
Yeah,
it was an incredible time.
Yeah,
so that's
she lived through it. I mean,
I lived through it. It was almost indescribable. You'll have an interesting time because it was more of an atmosphere than what you could even say activity. It was more the atmosphere than the activity. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to do it as a documentary, or are you going to?
No, it'll be a scripted narrative film.
A scripted narrative. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, did you read the book God's Forever Family?
I did.
Did you read it? Yeah.
And talk to Larry.
Yeah.
Okay,
did
yeah.
you? Okay.
Yeah, and he had a lot of concerns about making a film, and it was good. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So we're meeting with everybody. Hopefully, meeting up with Greg Laurie pretty soon, and just saying what happened. I want to tell the true story.
Yeah. Greg's a great source because he was there.
I remember him coming over to my house when he was like 16 years old with the Living Water track all printed up and showing. My dad was Czech, and showing it to my father and saying, "What do you think?" My dad's like, "Love it, love it." And the next thing you know, here's this Living Water track that we're stapling. I mean, I got to help staple those together and passing them out.
You know, Brian, too. If you want some connections, we know plenty of other people.
Thank you.
I read the book. I just finished it actually the other day, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a very interesting history. But the interesting thing about it was he really didn't focus too much on the West Coast. He didn't focus, at least Southern California.
Totally.
He kind of continues to allude to what was going on in Southern California, but he doesn't. I mean, he does a little bit with Hollywood and Larry Norman and
Arthur
Blessett and all of that. Yeah, but I thought there's a whole nother story there.
Agreed.
The Southern California thing that kind of got overlooked in the book, even though he comes back to it.
Yeah.
In the end, so
and that's what we hope to capture in the film because you can't talk about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the whole point because it wasn't about anybody in particular.
Right.
That's right. It was the Spirit of the Lord, the atmosphere.
Yeah. But we're going to be focusing on the West Coast, Haight-Ashbury, down to Calvary.
Ooh. Ooh, yeah.
and the whole story.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's really fascinating when you think, and this is what I really appreciated what he did, was he started in Haight-Ashbury, and you realize, wow, this started, in San Francisco. I mean, this is where this thing started.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're out of time.
Amazing. Yep,
And
we're out of time.
Thanks.
Join us tonight if you're in the local area, 7:30 right here at Calvary Chapel. Brian will be there, and I will be there too, and we're going to see this movie.
And I'll have Kleenex.
We're going to have a great time.
The
So
drop
God
top.
bless you. Have a great weekend.
Okay, God bless.
We pray you've been blessed and that you'll join us again for another edition of Pastor's Perspective. The preceding was sponsored by Calvary Chapel and KWVE.